So is it possible we can just have one format without a storm deck? Is that too much to ask? So do you want the good news or the bad news? The bad news is that we're all fucked. The good news is that it's not going to take me long to explain why. Everyone, this is Nikachu, Merfolk Master, and there's a new Storm deck on the block, and it just got a huge shot of steroids, and it is called Lotus Breach, and it is one of the breakout decks that we have seen at the Players Tour. This deck is literally Storm. This deck is literally Storm. It's just, it's as stormy as it is in Modern or Legacy, and let me explain why. It's got, you remember Gifts Ungiven? Well, Gifts Ungiven is back. You know, Past in Flames? Past in Flames is back. And it's just as flamey as ever. It's the exact same damn thing. In fact, when we talk about this card, this is actually an improved version over Yawgmoth's Will, which is a banned card in Legacy. I mean, this card is taking over Legacy. Maybe this deck can take over Legacy. What, like, your Wastelands aren't going to hit this Lotus Field. All right, so let's talk about Lotus Breach. What the hell is this thing? Why is this thing so important and powerful? Well, the Lotus Field card, they basically reprinted Black Lotus, put it on a land, and says you cannot, not only can you not target it, but you get infinite uses out of this thing. Black Lotus was just, it was a fairly designed card. You're just supposed to sacrifice it, you get to use it once. Lotus Field, on the other hand, you're going to use it multiple times. You tap, add 3 mana of any one color. Why does this thing need to have hexproof? Do you know what? I think Shroud was well designed. Nobody likes hexproof. Everyone hates hexproof. Why is it that one side can target the thing but the other side can't? I think hexproof should just be removed from evergreen status. Nobody likes hexproof. You can let me know in the comments section who likes. Nobody likes hexproof, all right? Nobody likes it. It should go back to Shroud. If I can't target it, you can't target it, and that's fair design. But anyway, our opponent can target it, and that's going to be really important because there are cards like Hidden Strings. Not so hidden anymore. You may tap or untap target permanent, then you may tap or untap another target permanent. And and it has Cipher, so you can encode this on like one of your creatures if you want to. But the point is, this is an ability to untap your Lotus and then start getting way more mana with this thing. So that is one of the engines of this deck. Now, what is the point of what is the point of this thing? So you're going to try to win the game in 2 ways. Either you make 1,000,000 mana and then shoot your opponent with expansion and explosion. You can deal X damage to target player, or you can just mill yourself to death. You can just draw through your entire deck, and then you use Fae of Wishes to look for Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, and then when you have no cards left in your deck, you just +1 the Jace, and then boom, you win the game on the spot. How are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? What is the point of this deck? Well, a Boreal Grazer, turn 1. Great way of slowing the game down. If your opponent's an aggro deck, well, too bad. A Boreal Grazer is going to block you. It's got reach, so screw the Spirits deck. Your 2/1 flyers, your Rattle Chains, your Selfless Spirits, your Spell Quellers, screw them. They can't attack into this guy that's like hanging onto the tree. You can put more lands onto the battlefield, so you can ramp into this Lotus Field. When there's the battlefield, you have to sacrifice 2 lands. Pretty heavy cost, but the fact that the Lotus Field is untouchable makes this not really such a big deal. And the format is slow enough that, I mean, you can get this thing into play on turn 2 and then start comboing off on turn 3. That's how disgusting this is. So anyway, we got Lotus Field here, and you can ramp into it. So turn 1 land, turn 2 a Boreal Grazer turn 1 a Boreal Grazer, put another land into play, turn 2 Lotus Field, and then you can start going off. Easy peasy. So Fae of Wishes. Now everyone knew that this card had a lot of potential. This is the Gifts Ungiven of this deck. Now it can act like as defense early on in the game if necessary, but the point is to use the granted side and choose a non-creature card you own from outside the game and put it into your hand. That's going to be important if, for example, you need for example, any sideboard card. So this is a deck playing 75 cards. They're a 75 card deck. This is like Karn the Great Creator all over again. So they have access to any sideboard card that they possibly want. You know, that includes stuff like Supreme Verdict. disgusting. But I think what they're really going to be going for pretty often is Underworld Breach. That's just another copy of Underworld Breach, and make everything in your graveyard have flashback. Let's talk about this card. So this card is basically a reprint of Yawgmoth's Will. Each non-land card in your graveyard has escape. The escape cost is equal to the card's mana cost plus exile 3 other cards from your graveyard. At the beginning of the end step, sacrifice Underworld Breach. So why is this card so much more busted than Past in Flames and Yawgmoth's Will? Now, Yawgmoth's Will, 3 mana. This thing is only 2 mana. Past in Flames not only is an insane amount of mana, but it only counted the cards that were currently in the graveyard when they cast it. Underworld Breach is just enchantment. And by the way, with Yawgmoth's Will and Past in Flames, those cards got exiled, so you can't reuse them all over again. With Underworld Breach, you can infinitely use the card. The card is not going anywhere. It just sits there. You just pay the mana cost and exile 3 other cards. But the actual card just sits there for eternity. I feel like people who didn't study history are doomed to repeat it. What the hell did they do this for? This card is wrecking Legacy. This card is now wrecking Pioneer. This card is ridiculous. This is everything Yawgmoth's Will wished it could be. Anyway, this card is insane. So the idea is you're going to get flashbacks of your hidden strings, your strategic plannings. Look at the top 3 cards, put one of them into your hand. Your Sylvan Scrying, which helps you find Lotus Fields. I mean, that's the consistency of this deck. You can find either 4 Lotus Field through just naturally drawing it, digging for it, or you just tutor for it with Sylvan Scrying. But anyway, you Underworld Breach to get more pour over the pages. Draw 3 cards, untap 2 lands, then discard a card. This thing is insane. I mean, this reminds me of like Urza's Saga with all those spells that like untapped lands for nothing. I mean, that's exactly what this is going to do, and it doesn't even target. So I mean, well, here's the thing: if that Lotus Field had Shroud, you would not be able to target it with hidden strings, but that's not going to matter with pour over the pages. So you draw 3 cards, discard a card, untap 2 lands, and you're going to untap your Lotus Field, of course. Oh, and of course, Dig Through Time, just the cherry on top. Let's play more of these really debatable cards in the deck. By the way, let's talk about some other cards. So Satyr Wayfinder, this is another way to find your Lotus Field, and another chump blocker to slow down the aggro decks. So very consistent deck. Vizier of Tumbling Sands. Look at this draft crap that's making its way into tier 0 decks. It's a 1/3 creature, untap another target permanent. Of course, you're going to untap your Lotus Field, just make tons of mana. And when you cycle this thing, you can cycle it for 2 blue. You can untap target permanent. So that's a way of netting some mana. Also, with the Lotus Field. So you can have extra. You want 4 Lotus Fields? Well, don't worry. You have more on the way because you can copy it with Thespian Stage. Yep, believe it or not, this card is legal in Pioneer. This is really overpowered. This deck is incredible. Now, some people are like, well, do you know what, Nikachu? There's actually a lot of natural answers to this thing. I mean, like, there's Rest in Peace for the Underworld Breach. There's also, I mean, what's a really good card is Damping Sphere. Damping Sphere hits this deck pretty hard. It shuts down the Lotus Field. Lotus Field just turns into a pile of crap if you got the Damping Sphere onto the battlefield. Also, you can't spend so much time digging for it with like strategic planning or whatever, because your spells keep costing 1 more every single time you cast them. So you slow down pretty quickly in your tracks. The problem with that is game 1, you're fucked. You're just totally screwed. What, are you going to have Damping Sphere game 1 against this thing? Are you going to have Rest in Peace game 1 against this thing? No, you're not going to have any of those cards against this deck. So you're going to lose game 1 pretty consistently. This deck is like incredibly powerful in game 1. And then in game 2, it's not even like they're totally cold to this thing. I saw players with multiple Damping Spheres in play. Huey Jensen, who made like the finals with this list. This is Huey Jensen's list. All he has to do is like Sylvan Scrying. He'll Sylvan Scrying for Blast Zone, which is in their deck. Play Blast Zone, take it up next turn, blow up, and on 2 it will blow up both Damping Sphere and Rest in Peace. Rest in Peace answers to this deck, so this deck has the answers. Not to mention, you can just dig for answers. Like, look, they can play Fae of Wishes, dig for whatever the fuck that they need. Look, Natural State, that will deal it with the Damping Sphere. What do we got? Unravel the Ether. That will deal with the Rest in Peace. So they've got the answers. They don't even need to sideboard. They might as well just run the same 75 post board every single time. So this deck, super powerful, now is putting a lot of debate into the Pioneer format. A lot of people thought that something from this deck was going to get banned, but Wizards said, you know what? We're done banning things. We're just gonna let you try to figure it out, see if you can like push back against this thing. So I have two thoughts about this. So the first one is that Storm decks that are really hard to interact with, that depend on you playing these glass cannon sideboard cards, they really suck. So you lose game one very often, and then you are dependent on drawing that Damping Sphere. If you don't have that Damping Sphere, you're screwed again. And the whole game revolves around just finding that one sideboard card. What kind of game of Magic is this? That's not really fun at all. It's utter crap. Why did you build your deck for your purpose with your plan, and archetypes like this completely wash all of that away? It completely undermines everything that you built your deck for, and now the game is just all about finding sideboard cards to beat this thing. Now, the plus side to this deck is that this deck is full of so many, like, draft garbage that you would never see at like, tier 0 quality. Like, look at this. Vizier of the Tumbling Sands? Vizier of the Tumbling Sands. Are you serious? This 1/3 untap another target permanent card that cycles. Never would have seen it. Hidden Strings. If you asked me 4 or 5 years ago if Hidden Strings would ever see play in a tier 0 deck, I would have lost my firstborn. I would have lost my house. I would have lost my soul. I would have bet it all. I would have bet it all and lost miserably. Hidden Strings finally seeing play in at any tier status, let alone tier 0. We've got Pour Over the Pages. This is another card you would never thought would see play. And now a lot of people thought, hey, Lotus Field, it had potential. Who knows how it's going to get broken? And now we are seeing that it is in fact getting broken. Not to mention, look at all these weird janky sideboard cards. Look, Tomb Scour, 1 blue. Target player puts the top 5 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. What is this for? This is for all those janky. It's for the new Splinter Twin deck, the Inverter of Truths. They play Inverter of Truths. They invert their library and their graveyard. Well, now I'm just gonna conveniently Fae of Wishes for the Tomb Scour and dump all your cards into the graveyard. Good luck winning after that. There's actually been a lot of very innovative, interesting ways of trying to beat the Inverter deck. People are playing with that the Blue Desert to mill them. That's some creative stuff. Although they could come over the top and try to cycle a card and win at their upkeep. But they still need to have something like Jace, Wielder of Mysteries in play. No, I guess it doesn't work. Yeah, if they get milled out, they get milled out. Yeah, because you're not going to play Tomb Scour if they have Jace in play. So anyway, this deck is really, really consistent. It's got all the answers. I mean, if they want to, they can also like dig for Lost Legacy with Fae of Wishes. But you see the parallels between Storm in Modern, Storm in Legacy, and then Storm here. I mean, look, you've got the Gifts Ungiven. You've got the Past in Flames. Then you just dig through the whole deck anyway. And it's easy to put cards in the graveyard. Like this thing, you need to fuel the escape with cards. Well, that's not going to be too hard with stuff like strategic planning. You take one card and you put the rest in the graveyard. So easy peasy, no problem. No problem. Anyway, I don't know who's looking forward to playing against this deck. I'm not no one's looking forward to playing against this deck. Just combo winter people. They enjoy playing those sick combo people. They like the combo mirror. So pack the Rest in Pieces. Pack those Damping Spheres. You fill up to the brim on the sideboard with the Damping Spheres, and let's make this deck pack up and get out of here.